Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started momentarily. Thank you all for coming. I'm the hidden voice from off the stage. Our stars are on the stage. They're the important people here. Thank you all for coming. This is an event put on by what's called Startup Simi Valley. It's a coordinated effort between the YES, the Youth Employment Service, the City of Simi Valley, the Chamber of Commerce, and the concept is to help those who want to start up a business. It may be a startup on a full-time basis. It may be, in some cases, a part-time basis, a side hustle, so to speak. And so tonight, we are focusing on cottage food industry. We have some experts here who've done the work, and we have representative from our county to make sure that we are in compliance and answer those kind of questions. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce, we have two of our three panelists here, two sets of our panelists here. And so we have Maritza Zarimba from Min's Baked Goods. Welcome, welcome. Maritza, you and I, we're going to share that mic between the four of you, or maybe five. So let's start with you. Tell us, first of all, just tell us what kind of food you're making and selling. Go ahead and grab the mic. Take it off the stand if necessary. What kind of food are you selling, making?
So I make vegan baked goods. I started off with cookies, and for the past 2 years, I've mainly just been baking cookies and other baked goods here and there.
Awesome. And now we also have the dynamic duo, Johnny and Giovanni Ragsdale from Our Daily Bread Bakery. What's your fare? What are you selling?
Good evening to everybody. So we have started our little cottage business that does sourdough, baked goods. And so there is the regular sourdough and the sourdough challahs that Johnny bakes and does. And then there's a number of specialty cakes and cookies that we also do that are seasonal.
Awesome. Very good. And then our resident expert from the county is Sue Saylor from the County of Ventura. She's our cottage food specialist. How long have you been working for the county?
That's a good question. I worked for a short period of time. I quit when I had my kids. I did other jobs, and then I'm back. So I don't know if you total it all up, maybe 20 years. But
fantastic.
I did other things too.
And how long have you been doing the cottage food specialist?
For 4 years.
4 years. Okay. Now let's go back to Maritza. Maritza, let's go ahead and start with what made you decide to do vegan cookies, and what made you decide, okay, these are going to be good enough to start selling?
Okay, let's see. So I started in 2020 during the pandemic. I actually had never baked really until the pandemic happened. I was taking art classes, and then everything kind of got canceled, and I was kind of just in a place of, what am I doing? And then, so I also recently had become vegan, and I was really passionate about it, and was trying to find a way of how I could make a small difference, be a voice for the voiceless. And during that time when we were all in lockdown, I kind of just started doodling and coming up with name ideas. Then I started doodling a logo in my notebook. And then, once I had a logo and my name, then I started kind of coming up with recipes, trying different things. I didn't even know what I really wanted to bake. I started leaning towards cookies, and then I started testing it with friends and family, getting feedback, while also researching how to be a home-based business.
Fantastic. And let me just tell you, it's been 2 or 3 years, right?
I think it's going on 3.
Yes. I remember way back in the day when she first sent them out. Christina, come on up. Awesome. So when she first put them up on Facebook? Is that how you first started posting things?
Yeah, Instagram and Facebook, like the Simi Valley, like community groups, like the foodie page. Yeah.
Fantastic. I was one of the guinea pigs that I'd love to. I placed an order and had her come deliver them, and it was fantastic. And then at some point you decide, okay, we need to make this legit and do all the proper licensing and all that kind of stuff. Is that what?
Yeah, so I had the vision, I had the logo, I was like ready to have my Instagram page going, and I had like the whole aesthetic that I wanted to do and my mission statement, and then it was like, okay, now I need the permitting to like actually be legit. Yeah, and Sue made it such an easy process. Yeah, and then once I had the permit, then things just started rolling from there.
Perfect. So take note. She has a notebook. She was probably with her all the time. She wrote down ideas, wrote down concepts. In the middle of the night, she probably pulled that out, tried recipes, over and over again. So these are the things that you should be doing too, in terms of, okay, what am I going to come up with? A business plan, a logo, the name. So it may not be the first name that you come up with. You may come up with another name, the ideas of what kind of food you're going to be doing. So these are things that you folks need to be coming up with for what you're doing, whether it's a full-time or a side hustle, okay? So next we're going to have, let me introduce our newest guest, Christina Cazzali from Cakes by
Sorry.
Christine.
Sorry, I'm late. I didn't know. I thought it was 6 o'clock.
No worries.
Missed.
No worries.
I
Tell
don't
us
know what-
tell us first, what are you selling?
I'm selling almond-based specialty cakes. It's sort of one of a kind. There's nothing out there. The reason why I got into it is because I've been pre-diabetic for a while. I've always been a dessert snob. Like, I'm always looking for something good, and I won't settle for anything less. So, also low in sugar, because I don't really like sweet stuff too. I mean, typical Asian don't really like too many sweet stuff. So, there's really no bakeries out here that I can think of. I mean, I'm sorry. Gelson's is probably the only one I can think of. I just don't. There's nothing in Simi that I would like. So I started experimenting with almond flour and cakes. Pretty much about a year before I started, but during COVID, I did a lot of it. That was starting, I guess, spring of 2020. Sorry, to backtrack a little bit, I wanted to do catering before that, actually. My husband's Persian. I do a lot of like Mediterranean cooking. Anyway, it didn't really get anywhere because I knew I couldn't get a permit for that. So I sold a little bit to families, friends, and I didn't really pursue it anymore. But then the cake thing got started during COVID, and let me think. So I was a stay-at-home mom before, so it wasn't like I lost my job or anything like that. It just started. Everyone's baking around the beginning of COVID, so you guys were too. So yeah, so it started during COVID, but not because of it's COVID. So I didn't lose a job.
Perfect.
And
So here we have. I'm gonna throw out ideas
I
here.
mean,
Here we have two examples so far of people who go, okay, I'm going to cook to the masses. No, in both cases they said, I'm going to pick a small niche that I am comfortable with and I'm okay with. I'm not going to sell to anybody and everybody. I'm going to say, okay, those who are interested in a vegan cookie, those who are interested in an almond flour type of sweet, lower sugar. So you may, each people in the room here may have something that you go, well, I like this, but I think I'm the only person who does. Here's two examples where all of a sudden they built a business on a very small niche, as opposed to saying, I'm going to be the Keebler of cookies and sell to everybody. I'm going to pick a small niche and I'm going to pick my lane and go for that. So you may have something similar that you go, you know what? I like it, my friends like it, but is everybody else going to like it? There's probably enough that can. Okay?
Another thing that I didn't even know when I started was I actually a lot of gluten intolerance took interest in my cakes right away. I mean, I can tell there were a lot of questions coming in and quite an interest. And so I started experimenting with gluten-free flours as well. And so I did like a mix 50-50 with almond and gluten-free flour. So that worked really well actually. It was pretty they really took it in. So the gluten, I want to say about 30% of my business is gluten intolerant customers, but they're really loyal too. They really have nowhere to go. Once you get them, they're really loyal.
And
Yeah,
let me think that in some cases,
Yeah.
in both cases here, the taste of the cookies or the taste of the cakes are delicious. The fact that they're vegan, the fact that they're gluten-free is just a bonus, right? So some people are buying her cakes, some people are buying her cookies, and oh, by the way, they're vegan. Oh, by the way, they're gluten-free. There's some people in those areas that go, okay, I only want a vegan cookie, or I only want gluten-free. But at the same time, she's picked some things that she goes by taste, which are delicious, and not everybody cares that they're vegan. Not everybody cares that they're gluten-free. Am I right?
Right.
Beautiful. All right. Third up, the dynamic duo, Johnny and Giovanni Ragsdale. Our Daily Bread. You want to share us kind of how many years or how long you've been doing it, how you got started?
Oh, all right. So we've been doing.
Put up to there you go.
All right. So we've been doing it about 3 years. Is that right? Yeah. So we kind of got our business got the kickstart because of the pandemic as well. I mean, there was a huge surge in people starting businesses because of all that. We had our fair share of upheaval. My business of massage therapy got shut down. Gio got let go a few months into the pandemic from her current work, and so we really just threw everything behind this. She learned everything about what we needed law-wise to find our licensing and get everything certified. And I had been working on perfecting a sourdough recipe for like a year and a half before we even got started, just out of a hobbyist mentality, and got pretty darn good at it. And so we decided to just go behind that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'll just share a little more in the storyline there. I have a hard time processing bread. And so Johnny actually started doing sourdough for me to be able to enjoy bread with family and friends, where sourdough is not as hard on my stomach. And one of the things that as we kind of researched and put our business plan together, right, we came up with our mission statement, and that is that we produce wholesome products from our oven to your door. And so none of our products have any preservatives. Everything is baked the day it's delivered, and it's high quality. And so that has really been like the gearing, north point for us and what we do and how we do our business. Along with that, we also then started to produce some cookies because he's like, hey, you've been doing cookies for a couple of years. I worked in a university setting for many, many years. And let me tell you, you taste test a lot of things with college kids and learn a lot of do's and don'ts and what's good and what's not. And so we said, hey, we'll try that out. We'll throw in a recipe here and there of some of our cookies. And, we went back and forth. The average cookie on the market today is usually about yay big, right? They're large. They usually sell for like $4. And both of us kind of sat there and went, people really shouldn't be eating cookies that big. And so part of, again, our mission and our focus and our interest in our business was like, how can we have something that's good, that has high quality products, and that aren't overindulging. So all of our cookies are 1 ounce or less, and so it's part of our branding and part of our area. And again, I've got parents who are diabetic, pre-diabetic, right? So it's like you want to enjoy something, but you don't want to send anybody into a diabetic coma either in what we do and produce. And so that's kind of a little bit behind the impetus of the things that we've produced and that we've done. And a lot of it has been trial and error and learning and having a lot of grace from our community along the way, because it's very different when you're doing like one or two things and then you're like mass producing, 20 or 30 loaves in a day. And things can go wrong in baking very, very quickly. So, you learn and you adjust and you grow, and it's just been a great experience for us. And this has been a side hustle for us in the last year or so. But I'll be perfectly honest, it was what kept the bills being paid during the height of the pandemic for both of us. And we're both extremely grateful to the community here in Simi Valley that responded to us and that, came alongside us in something that we were bringing to the community in a different way.
Fantastic. So I'm not sure if you catch this from all three of them, three companies, the passion behind what they're doing, the ability to go, okay, I'm going to pick my lane and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to make sure that the quality is there. And I'm going to use my family and friends to taste test and sample and make changes and adapt if I need to. So any of you thinking of doing anything similar to that, raise your hand. There we go. That's what we're here for. Fantastic. Now, back to Maritza. At what point did we go, okay, how am I gonna price my food?
Let me see. Let me think back.
We're gonna ask all three of you. So
Yeah, I guess I watched a lot of YouTube videos of like people who have done the same thing.
trial and error.
Yeah, also trial and error. So when I started, I think I charged like
Too little.
yeah, a lot, like way too little. I've definitely increased it over the past few years. And I think too, once I started at a farmer's market, yeah, just trial and error. Like I started at a price that I thought was fair. I know there's like a whole equation as well that you can do to calculate how much you should be charging. So I did that and then just went with it and yeah.
Johnny Giovanni, you want to answer that question? How do you come up with your pricing?
Yeah, so we kind of did the formulaic version and looked at how many hours does it take to produce what we produce. So Johnny's sourdough bread, the general loaves that he does runs on a 24-hour fermentation process. So there's a lot of like hurry up and wait kind of scenario, right? You do this and then you wait. And then you do something for a while and then you wait. And then you do something and you wait. But it's a lot of time. And so anybody who wants to produce a good, wholesome sourdough at their own home might struggle and be like, I don't have the patience to do this over the next 36 hours, so I have a bread to enjoy, right? So that was partly what we looked at, was the amount of time it took to do it, the amount of product and the cost of products to produce the items. And then we set a price and went, well, let's see what happens. And so I'll be honest, we sell our 1 pound loaf at $10 and our 2 pound loaf at $16. You can go to the supermarket and get a loaf of sourdough bread, right, for like $2.30. And so there are people who sit there and go like, gosh, that's really expensive. And then I say, yeah, but you know what? It was all prepared in the last 24 hours. There's no preservatives in this. And they're like, oh, yeah, how long has that bread that you're eating from the shelf been produced? When was it produced, and how long has it been sitting in storage? Do you really want to put that in your body? And again, there's that niche, and we have a great customer base that orders from us on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and that's our group and that's our niche. And every now and again, some of them come back and some of them leave, and it just depends on what's going on in their lives. But that's about how we came up with our pricing in that arena, was looking at the formula of the cost of products against the time to produce.
Christina, how did you come up with pricing?
There wasn't a lot of research to begin with. I think I was using my competitor, would be like Nothing But Cakes. I know how much they're selling their dozen, what is it called? Bantinis? Butlet? Oh, Bantinis, yeah. I think they were like 24. So I was pricing mine a little bit above that because mine is almond based, so it's a higher ingredient cost. So I think customers, as soon as they see almond, not only that it's also an allergen, they think it's a higher price item. So I didn't really have any problem with the pricing. For what I was asking in the beginning, I have increased it, not as much as I really should have. I don't know. This is Simi Valley, so it's really hard. I mean, I do have customers in Thousand Oaks, Westlake too, but I'm still Simi based. I think as a general rule, it's 3 times the cost is what you should be charging. You guys agree with that? I think and I joined a lot of bakers Facebook group. They're such a great resource too, so I'm happy with that. They're like they know exactly what you're talking about. If you have any issues, there's several. There's California based, and then there's also like nationwide. And you name it, there's Facebook group just about anything. So they have been so helpful. I really give them credit for that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All the way down to Sue. We're gonna give Sue some time. Sue, you want to share with us? We've got a concept. We've got what we want to do. What's next legally with the county? Tell us. You have some slides, maybe?
I do.
Mind you, just so you know, Our Daily Bread delivers, and I've had some warm sourdough bread. Very good.
Yeah, I will add to that. I get to see what everybody's producing. So it's like sometimes people will pick my brain about a niche, because I do say that. I use that word. Anybody can make, I guess, a chocolate chip cookie that tastes really good, but not everybody can make a vegan cookie or an almond-based cake, a flour-based, things like that, or that fresh bread, which every bakery just about in Ventura closed down, which is sad. And I usually purchase from my CFOs too. Because then there's nothing really like it, right? There's nothing really like it. I mean, it's ethnic, it's varied, it's really interesting for me to learn about. There was somebody just recently who did pie pops, which was the first time I'd ever seen a pie pop. And I thought, well, that's an interesting concept. Probably not a lot of fruit in it, but anyway. Okay, so here we go, cottage food operation. Actually, this law has been going on for 10 years now. So California joined a lot of the other states. I think just about every state in the U.S. has cottage food law of some kind. So it's been active for 10 years. And what it does is it allows what we call non-potentially hazardous food as your end product to be sold. That means non-perishable. It has to be non-perishable when you're done and not require refrigeration. And then you can also repackage food that's already been prepared. That was added to the law. Instead of made in a home kitchen, it's repackaged in a home kitchen. Next.
We're cutting off some. So
Oh.
if you guys want to look, Sue printed out the slides.
Yeah, I have the slides there.
And then if you could watch that.
And there's 3 things that you'll see in the middle that I didn't have time to distribute. One of them is the approved cottage food list. The state maintains that. The other one is the food safety certificate that's required. And then the third one is the changes in cottage food law. Really big changes this year to open it up to a much greater venue. So there's 2 classes, and that's a business decision that you need to make based on who you want to sell to, primarily. There's Class A. This, you receive a registration. You can do direct sales to consumers. There's no home kitchen inspection, which is why I think the risk levels kept very low because of that. You have a phone consult with an inspector annually, and then you get an annual registration renewal. We send out the invoice, you pay, and that we keep you active. Then there's the Class B. In this case, you get a permit. You can not only do direct sales to consumers, but you can also do a wholesale activity, which we call indirect sales. You're providing it to restaurants, coffee shops, markets, grocery stores, and they will turn around and sell it to a consumer. So you can do both of those sales. It does require an initial home kitchen inspection that you have to pass. It's not scary, right? Okay. And then we do it annually thereafter. Nothing really dramatic you need for those, and I cover it before we come out. Like, here's what we're going to look for. So it's not scary. And then you get an annual permit every year by paying the invoice. So direct sales, what does that mean? You can sell at certified farmers markets, you can sell at community events, you can sell at holiday bazaars, bake sales, food swaps, farm stands, community-supported ag subscriptions. You can sell from home. You can deliver from home. You can make sales via the phone, internet, any other digital method. And you can fulfill it in person. New as of 2020, you can ship your product. This was a deal breaker for a lot of people. Now, that doesn't mean you can ship it nationally. That because we are a California cottage food law, but you can ship it anywhere within the state of California. And I think that's about it. Oh yeah, third-party delivery. I mean, if you want to do DoorDash or something and have them deliver, you could do that too. Indirect sales, kind of covered this already, but basically you're selling to someone who has a retail food facility permit, and that's important. It can't be any business. It has to have a permit which allows them to sell food to the public, and then they're going to turn around and sell it on your behalf. And again, you can fulfill this in person, mail delivery, or any third-party delivery service. Again, you can ship to California to any retail food facility that's interested. And this is where the advertising and all of the social media gets your product out there. And all of that's perfectly good. This is what they look like. So if you have a cottage food Class A, you get that registration certificate. That makes you legal. And then if you're the B, you get the permit to operate. There's a list, and I didn't include it all on here because it would take forever, but you'll see there is one in the middle of the table. The state determines what's approved. And if it's not in a category, I can't approve it. Once in a while, like I remember with your cakes, Christina, you had those syrup infused. So sometimes I have to check with the state to see, okay, does this make it perishable? Because I don't want you to have liability. Just remember that all of these things protect you, because if you're selling a perishable good to someone, there's a chance they could get sick since if it's not refrigerated. So I always tell people it's limiting, but it helps with your liability, to protect liabilities. Labeling is the same way. Anyway, it's a lengthy category list. It's expanded. You can always apply to the state. If you don't see anything on there and you go, hey, I want to add something. That's how this list gets expanded, is because people decide, I don't find this on the list that I want to do, and it's non-perishable, and you can apply to the state, and who knows, it could be added. Like right now we have vanilla flavoring extracts that didn't used to be on there. You can do all kinds of flavoring extracts actually using alcohol. And anyway, it's exciting. And then you need, whether you're an A or a B, you need a food safety certificate. It can be very simple, and there's $10 or even $5 courses. The one that you have to have at a minimum is the California Food Handler Card, and this is what all the restaurant workers get as well. It's an online class. It's pretty easy, I think, right? Yeah. If you get the bigger one, and so that California Food Handler Card is good for 3 years. You have to renew. If you get the Food Safety Certified Food Protection Manager, it's good for 5 years, but it's pretty tough. Or that's what I hear. I actually never have taken it. This is what our report looks like. So basically it's just a check-off list, and before we go out, you will know exactly what we're looking for, so you can be prepared. Since we don't go into a CFO Class A home kitchen to inspect, we still have the right to inspect if we've had a public complaint. In the time that I have been here, I don't think I've received a single complaint. Occasionally we'll have complaints about illegal food sales. So these are people who are operating like what we call a CFO, but they don't have any registration or permit. We will do enforcement on that, which is to say a notice of violation. And I always say it's not fair, to those people here. who did the hard work, right? And were able to do it. So, but if somebody should complain about the product, like, I don't know, they found hair in there, or there was something wrong with it, then we would have a right to come out. Okay. The labels. When you do a cottage food operation label, you are meeting state and federal labeling law. It's tricky. Everybody who gets approved can do it, but it usually takes a lot of back and forth, because people will submit their labels and I'll tell them, okay, so you need to revise blah, 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 right? And then sometimes we do that again, and sometimes again until it's right. But by the time you're done, you have a fully approved meeting federal requirements for a label. And what is a label really doing is it's informing a consumer who's responsible, what's in there, what allergens are there, and how much am I really getting, right? This is all kind of full disclosure to consumers. Protects you, because if you are honest about, your label, you've clearly identified the allergens to a consumer, it protects you. And I always say on the net weight, because that always drives people crazy. Sometimes people make it and they weigh it. You always have to give somebody more than what you state than less. What gets you in trouble if you give somebody less? Like you say it's a pound and they're getting 3/4 of a pound. Not good. You can get in trouble for that. Okay, so advertisement. This is new in the law too. So if you're going to advertise, no matter how it is, on a social media site, newspaper, newsletter, however you do advertise, it's now required that you identify who you are. That you were approved in Ventura County. You give them your permit, your CFO permit or registration number. Again, that's a traceback kind of thing. And then you have to say that your food is made in a home kitchen or repackaged in a home kitchen. Some people will not purchase food that's made in a personal kitchen. Most people don't really care,
If it's good, who cares?
If it's good. And I have to admit that of all the different kitchens I've inspected, some of them are beautiful, and probably all of them are better than some of our restaurants, honestly, and sanitation and everything else. So I've never had anybody fail an inspection. Okay, so what do you submit? And you have the PowerPoint slides. So just briefly, it's an application with a self-certification checklist. The labels. So sometimes people say, well, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to make. Well, submit what you think you're going to do. Like, in other words, if you have 6 things you want to get started to do, submit those. And each product will have its own label because they're made from different things, right? So then there is a fee. The Class A initially is $213.06. After the first year, I'm going to forget what it is, but it's 100 something, because the first year you're paying in part for my review of everything, and after that it's just a brief phone consult. The CFO Class B is $303.23, and that's the initial, and every year thereafter. Then you have your food safety certificate if you got it. If you don't have it, you have 30 days to get it. Or wait, 60 days or 90, I forget now. Anyway, you have a time period to get it after you get approved. So don't sweat that like you have to get it beforehand. And then city documents. So the city of Simi Valley wants you to get a CFO registration or permit first. Then they want you to go to them, I guess it's the planning department, and maybe get a home occupation permit, business license, something like that. On your approval letter, I clearly state who you have to contact for that. And
For the city of Simi Valley, am I wrong that I think that's all done online?
I think so. Yeah, that's how most places are anymore. You can do it all online, complete a form and go from there.
Pay online.
Pay online. And unfortunately, we don't have that capability here. You'll see. So now you know what you have to submit, right? Now, how do you do it? Well, at this point, you have to either mail it in or you have to drop it off in person. Those are just really the 2 options. We don't have an online mechanism. It's pretty complicated because of the fees and that kind of thing. But maybe someday, hopefully. The renewals are online. Yeah, because you've already been established in our database, and then we can do it. Let's see. Oh gosh, that looks like a lot of words. But basically, what happens is We get your documents. We enter you in our database. Somebody tells me, hey, I've got one for you to review. I'm going to review them, and for Simi Valley, it's going to be Neva Wong, who couldn't be here today because her roof is leaking. We will review it all, and we'll either send you an email or a letter telling you what we need. Maybe more information, maybe the labels need to be revised. Then you just give us what we want, and then eventually, once everything's approved, if you're a Class B, we're going to come out to your kitchen, and then after that, we're going to mail and email approval documents. Once you get it via email, you're good to go. You can begin because the mail is just kind of a technicality. You get your hard copy registration or permit, and your original letter and things like that. Then the good news is if you add new products, which I have a couple that are up to 200, so it's no small task. Some people, there's a chocolatier, I have just chocolate bars. I think he's up to 150. So it's just massive. And then the lady who does baked goods, Susie's Cookies out in Ojai, I think she's got like 175. Anyway, there's no charge for that. So if you add, let's say you've added a few new things, then there's no charge. I just review it, tell you if you need any revisions, and we go from there. So the idea is, and you can go to the next slide. Oh, I guess it's the next one, but this is okay. Here's your websites. There's one to our division, and that's going to have the applications, et cetera, more information. And then if you're interested to see what the state has to say about it, you can go on their site too. That's where you'd find that application to submit something new. And really our goal, and it's a personal thing for me, that any program I kind of get involved in, because it's bureaucratic and nobody likes a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. I don't, I'm sure you don't. Although I work for one, I try to make it very user-friendly. I try to treat you like I would like to be treated. Like, in other words, if you email me, I will email you back the same day, unless you email me at 5:30. I'm probably still working, but I might not respond then. So the idea is we want to make you successful. We want to encourage you and support you however we can. And that's really our goal.
Wow. Am I wrong in thinking that, as opposed to thinking, okay, the government is scary, mean, and going to be after you for everything, Sue seems very approachable, right? Sue seems like a normal person. She thinks like a normal person, like you and me.
Thank God for that.
Way to go, Sue. Well, thank you. It sounds like if you had a question, you could probably just call. She might even answer. And if she's going to email, she's probably going to answer you back the same day, unless she's traveling from Ventura to here.
Yeah, exactly.
You bet.
So Sue is incredible. I'm so excited. This is the first time I'm meeting her in person, but I feel like I've known her because I've worked with her for 2.5 years with our business, and she is truly, truly incredible. There was one product we wanted to do, and she's like, "Well, you can't do a garlic bread. Like you can't do a rosemary bread." And we're like, "Well, what if we do this?" And what if she's like, "Okay, let me call." And she reached out to the state higher level and asked certain questions and came back and said, okay, if you do a dry garlic, then you can do it. You just can't do fresh. And that is, to me, one of the biggest testaments of who she is at her work, is she went above and beyond to help us be successful in our business in what we wanted to do, that she doesn't personally benefit in any way apart from knowing that she's helping someone achieve their dream. And that's been pretty awesome. So thank you, Sue.
Now, Giovanni, do you have an A and a B?
We currently just have an A, but
Okay.
we submitted our paperwork to move to a B licensing with our transition that we're in the process of doing.
Perfect. And how many times did you have to do renditions of a label?
One too many, would Sue say. It varies from time to time. I'll be perfectly honest. Sometimes you send it in and it's like you're golden, right? And it's great. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, I remember with the vegetable oil, right? I put in vegetable oil and she's like, you forgot the soy, because vegetable oil is made out of soy product, right? And I was like, oh my God, I totally missed that. Like, I just put vegetable oil and didn't even reconsider the fact of how is that made and the allergens that go with it. So
Definitely a learning curve.
there is a learning curve, but again, Sue is incredibly patient with us and works through that process to ensure our success.
Perfect. Christina, A and a B license, what do you have?
I have a Class A only. I was thinking about Class B. Actually, I think we talked about it with Marissa. She got a Class B at the time, and I was questioning her. And then at the end, I decided not to.
Perfect.
I stick with Class A.
And how many renditions of your label?
Not a whole lot, right, Sue? It was at a lot. I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe about 30 over the years. This is my third
Okay,
year.
so don't think that the first time you're sending her a label, it's going to pass. Assume it's not. How about the second time? No, it's not going to pass. Third, maybe if a third time, hallelujah, it did finally, right? Marissa, how many A and a B? You have an A and a B.
I started with A and then got a B. When my A was up for renewal, then I switched to the B. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, Sue, let's talk about a third-party commercial kitchen in Simi Valley. I know of 4 places that has, at the far east end of town, there's one on Cuner, right by Beddoes. There's a commercial kitchen there. I know that the 2 Catholic churches, St. Rosalima and St. Peter Claver, have a commercial kitchen. And then there's St. Francis has a commercial kitchen. Can you discuss that for us, please?
Sure. So obviously the cottage food operations are home-based, right? There's pros and cons of that. You will never get a cheaper deal, or should I say less expensive deal than a cottage food. You will never get that, ever. And that's part of its attraction, I think, is that the requirements, nobody's inspecting your kitchen for, commercial equipment and things like that, right? It's home-based. Whatever you have, we're dealing with, so long as the refrigerator is holding properly. So if you wanted to transition to get a retail food facility permit, there's quite a lot to it. You can't just go into any kitchen and get started. There are 2 official shared kitchens in Ventura County, but there really is nothing in the East County. There's Summit Kitchen in Ventura, and there's the Kitchen Terminal in Camarillo. Those are bona fide shared kitchens. They have multiple people that come in and use the kitchen. They have a contracted time period and days of the week that you're in. There's no overlap. So when you're using their kitchen, I think they might actually have multiple kitchens. You're it, right? But you're paying for that. You won't pay
By the hour?
Yeah, I believe so. It's like an hourly rate. And so, I encourage you, like, let's say you want to make cheesecakes. You can't make cheesecakes as a CFO. Some people just want to make what they want to make, right? Whipped cream with fresh fruit on top for cakes. Then you'd need the retail food facility permit. We do have guidelines, so if anybody's interested, I have business cards. I'll just give them to you, and you can email me, and I'll email you the shared kitchen guidelines. They're pretty strict. So part of it is that you need a certain amount of storage dedicated for your operation. And the second thing is you can't overlap. So if you're sharing a kitchen with somebody in Simi Valley, they're in there when you're not, you're in there when they're not. And that's, I think, mainly because if there's a problem, then it's kind of segregated instead of 2 people, and maybe they want to use the same equipment, and then it gets all mucky. Anyway, it's doable, and other than those 2 shared kitchens I told you about, people have made it happen where they got a second permit at a retail food facility, permitted place, but it's pretty tricky. And so I'm happy to send you those guidelines, though.
Sue, do me a favor. Say those 2 names of the 2 places right now, Ventura and Camarillo. Okay?
Yeah, so there's Summit Kitchen in Ventura and the Kitchen Terminal in Camarillo. They're brand new, by the way. They saw the need in the county for this kind of an incubator, I guess you could call it, kitchen. And so they went in. I think they charge quite a bit, though. Yeah. That's the only thing. I've been having people tell me what they charge, and it's not cheap. But then again, they spent probably, I don't know, close to $1 million putting that thing in. Yeah, they're not cheap. Yeah, and I always tell people if you want to get your own, then you have to be really careful because it has to meet our code requirements now. Somebody might have gone out of business, 7 years ago, and the law has changed, and now you want to go in there. Just be really careful what you do. Always, you can check with me, and I can put you in touch with somebody who is the inspector out there. And there are ways to kind of figure out if that kitchen will even work for you. But if you sign a contract, just be careful because then you're really locked in.
So now, each of these three businesses, in some cases, do delivery. And you're going to have clients who go, I need delivery on Monday morning by 10 o'clock. I need a delivery on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Is there some, for each of you, I'm going to do deliveries only on certain days. Is that the case, Maritza?
Well, when I first started, I would deliver anywhere because I was just excited that someone was ordering.
Now?
Now, so my thing is I bake to order. Like that's part of my thing is I like to bake fresh for the person. So people order mainly through Instagram and it's very one-on-one. Like I'm talking to them directly and I kind of just work things out with them. I know it's not really sustainable on like a larger scale, but yeah, I just work out with the individual what time this week works for you, or if they needed a specific day.
It
Yeah,
works.
It's very one-on-one.
It works around your schedule,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Johnny, Giovanni, let's hear about when do you deliver?
So currently we deliver on the third Sunday of every month. Here during the month of November, we actually will deliver that third Sunday, which is the Sunday prior to Thanksgiving. We will also deliver on Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving, and we will be at the craft holiday shop thing on Sunday after Thanksgiving. So we've got some massive stuff for us this area. When we first started during the pandemic, we were delivering Sunday, Wednesdays, and Fridays to families, and so it was a constant production and activity that was happening. As things have reopened, I've gone back to the workforce, and my husband's gone back to doing massage therapy as well. So a little bit of that change that's happened for us as to when we deliver, but for the most part, it is same thing, right? We bake to order in that regard, and if there's a client that has a large enough request, which we do have a few of those that come through because they want to do special gifts for their employees or things along those lines, then we'll do a special order for that group outside of our regular bake times.
Well, you still have the phone or still have the mic. Excuse me. What is you have a client base. What's your best way of getting additional or new clients?
So social media has really been a great way for us to get to know the community or have them get to know us, to be perfectly honest with you. That's probably how we met Christina and Marissa during this pandemic era, was through Facebook, and collaborated and, talked with one another about what we were doing and how we were doing. And I know I've had lots of joy seeing Christina grow in her work and finding her at farmers markets. We do not do farmers markets. We've thought about it, but we haven't, and then we've seen her at like a fair and other things like that she does, right? So it's just it's a small community, it's a niche community. I know that when we first started, we were doing vegan products and gluten-free products, and then as we met them, we're like, you know what, we're just going to refer. And so when I get a client that says, hey, do you have any gluten-free items? I'm like, let me refer you over to Christina at Cakes for Christina, right? Or the vegan areas, we've referred them over to Marissa's business, because again, there are those niches. And I think when you work in collaboration, everybody grows a little bit better in that regard, kind of thing.
Christina, when do you deliver? How do you deliver? What's details on that?
Okay, I guess I'm a people pleaser too. I deliver on weekends now. Yeah, that's when people want their sweets. But in the beginning, yeah, it's like if it's birthday, they're not gonna wait for the weekend. If it's a Wednesday, it's their birthday, I'll deliver to them. So I charge $5. I wasn't charging before; it was built into the price, but gas has gone up. So I have to say though, because maybe it's a bit luxury, my items pre-orders has dwindled down a little bit more this year. I noticed that. So I try this year. I've done a lot of events, and that has worked out really well. So actually, probably prefer to do that, bigger events too. I use a freezer. I have a 15 cubic foot freezer, so I bake and freeze. That helped a lot. I'm outgrowing it now, so I need to get a second freezer. I have a big event in December, so that's the only way that I could do it is to bake and freeze. Like I'll do like 3 batches a day, and I'll freeze, and then by the end of the week, I'll have a lot. So that's how I do it.
So think of how you were going to start your business, and think of the pain of saying, I can't deliver today because I'm working, or I can't deliver tomorrow because of this or that. All 3 of these are now letting their customers realize what I have is unique, what I have is special, and it works around my schedule, but at the same time, it works around what you need, as opposed to saying, I'm going to have to be open 24/7, I'm going to have to be open 8 to 5, I'm going to have to do deliveries every day of the week. One day a month, we're delivering bread. Do you think a lot of people are getting bread delivered on that one day because the flavor of that bread is amazing? You can't get it over at Costco. You can't get it over at, Gelson's or whatever else. You're getting something very special. And so your customer will appreciate your food and take it when you deliver it. Right? Okay. So now what we're going to do is open it up to some questions here from the audience. Just raise your hand and I'll call on you. We'll stand up and say a question.
Yeah, so it has to be a ready-to-eat food. So I have a few people that repackage. Actually, that chocolate bar guy I was talking about, he decided he wanted to repackage.
Sue, go ahead and use the mic.
I usually talk pretty loud anyway, but he decided he wanted to repackage candy canes. So you can do that. You basically have your own package, your own label, and the products inside. But I've had people do snack mixes, gummy bears, so kind of candies and snacky things, pretzels, whatever, nuts, things like that.
Question, anybody else? Stand up and tell us your question.
Yeah, it depends. So I think the soonest I've ever done something is when the labels were so spot on. I was like, oh my gosh, how did they do that? So that was probably like a few days. I mean, basically reviewed, looked perfect. Okay, I'm going to do the letter. I put it in the queue. I get it back in, maybe another couple days. But honestly, with labels, it depends on if people get back to me. I've actually had some applications that go nowhere. I don't know what happens to the people, but they drop out. And I'm still calling them because that's who I am, right? Are you still interested? I don't know, I'll email, call. So sometimes it'll take as short as, let's say, a week. But realistically, I would say it's probably like 2 weeks if everything looks good. But if people get back to me, remember, I'm getting back to them real quick too. But sometimes there's that lapse. People just don't. They kind of sit on things. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So what happens is if there are 2 or more ingredients, like on your package label, include those. Like if it says, like it's unsalted butter and like it says cream or something, you don't have to put the cream. It's just, unsalted butter. But a lot of things will have at least 2 or more, and then you include those. That's actually where the allergens pop up in those we call them sub-ingredients.
You bet, Giovanni.
So just to your question about the timing, I think the thing that takes the longest is getting your DBA, which is your doing business as name. So, we're Our Daily Bread Bakery. You have to apply for that with the state. You have to then publish it in the newspaper. It has to run for a couple of weeks before it's then approved. So if you're looking at starting a business that has a special name and isn't like what you're doing in your name. So I'll give you an example, right? My husband's massage therapy is Ragsdale Therapeutic Massage. He didn't need to get a DBA for that because it's what he does and it's his name. But our Daily Bread Bakery does require a DBA licensing, and that will take longer than the process with Sue.
And the newspaper is like a Santa Paula or Fillmore has a newspaper?
Yeah, they're the cheapest in the region to run it with, to be perfectly honest with
which
you.
one is it? Santa Paula?
The Fillmore,
Fillmore.
one is the cheapest one to run it with. But it does, or at least it was. But it is a process that you have to go through if you want to do that, to just give anybody an opportunity that's like, no, I have that name already registered, to be able to kind of raise their voice and let us know.
Perfect. Center room, you had a question. Stand up and say it.
How about insurance and the liability that is working from home?
Yeah, but maybe they could say what they've done. And you know, the DBA is not our requirement, and it isn't required of you unless you want to preserve that name. The insurance is a good question. We don't require it. Maybe they could talk on whether they had some kind of rider put on their house insurance or something, just to protect, again, that liability. Restaurants will have liability insurance in case somebody reports they got ill. Did you guys get insurance?
I've never had insurance. I think, especially starting off, like starting small, I don't know, I was never really worried about that right off the bat. I think maybe if I continue on and get bigger, definitely consider insurance. But it wasn't like, oh, I have to do this to get started.
I know an insurance man who says, protect your assets. If you have a lot of assets, you want insurance to protect those. If you, and you know, again, your liability would be exposure to your assets. So your insurance is to protect your assets.
Yeah. I have insurance. It's Flip. I forgot what it stands for, but the website is flipprogram.com, and it's $300 a year, and it's so worth it. Well, actually, when I started doing events, they asked for additional insured, so that's the only way that I got it. And also, I do like specialty cakes with, you know, like catering to the gluten intolerance, so it's really important for me to cover myself. So
Perfect.
It's a peace of mind, really.
We have one more question. Anybody else? Back in the back in the pink. Stand up.
Yeah, so I started just selling through Instagram, like directly to people, like pickup or delivery, and it was contactless at the time. And then I started getting into farmers markets, and that's where I really started building like a web of connections. And then I think after doing that, I got in touch with people like at the market and stuff, and like, oh, do you want to sell at my restaurant or that kind of thing? I was like, sure, like try it out. Yeah.
Test the waters in terms of networking. All of a sudden, she has cookies in a coffee shop, right? And then on that label, it has her contact information, so that it's going to drive people to her website, so they can get it either at the coffee shop or on her website.
Yeah, I will say for the Class B, it's not necessarily, well, for me, it wasn't really a great profit because you do have to give a portion to the restaurant or the owner.
You're selling wholesale.
Yeah. It was good, I guess, advertising. Like a lot of, like when I would do events and stuff, people would come up to me like, oh, I've had your cookies at from this place. So it definitely helps build that web of connections. But yeah, I think.
Good and bad to both.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Last question right here.
So we're kind of thinking of doing like an art studio, and we wanted to sell goods that we made in the art studio. Would this fit with that, where we could sell them in our own business?
We have something called, it's actually not a retail food facility permit, it's a registration. It's an adjunct food facility. If you have a limited amount of space, you could get that at like your art studio. And that would allow you then, to sell there, unless your art studio is part of your house or something. Okay. Yeah. So if you get to that point, just let me know, because then I could put you in touch with the inspector who could give you that. Sure.
Fantastic. Let's give these folks a round of applause. Now we have some commercials. You're watching a Netflix show or something. You've got the commercials between the shows. There is a volunteer fair, flyers in the back, on Wednesday, November 16th. If you have kids who need to do volunteer hours for school requirements, that's a good place too. Or if you just want to have some time to do some volunteering. Saturday, December 3rd, right here is a craft fair, and there's only 2 or 3 spots left. The high expensive cost for a booth, $20, right? And rumor has it, they might be able to split a booth, which would be $10 each. Okay? So maybe try that out. And then this would be something where you can just take a picture, because we don't have flyers. There is a shop, Simi Valley First, and there's a program where you purchase items here in Simi Valley, save your receipts, and you could win up to a $1,000 gift card, $500 gift card. Details in the back. Take a picture of that, and then. Holy moly! Yes, yes. Save your receipts. If you buy a car, you probably get a lot of tickets. You betcha. There's a time frame for receiving your receipts, and then there's a time frame to turn them in. Now here's a really niche question. Who makes a very good gingerbread cookie? We have one. We have two. 1, 2. Who could maybe come up with a great gingerbread cookie? Let's have the pitch. Who's going to do a pitch?
So there is an opportunity here at the Cultural Arts Center. ELF is going to be in production soon. When does that start, Fred? No. Okay. So coming up soon, and they're looking for someone to do a crafted gingerbread cookie that they could sell specifically here during that production run. So if you are interested, we'll have you see Fred in the back. But so there's some of those opportunities, and I think the Cultural Arts Center, kind of with each run of different productions, they're looking for that little niche thing to sell in their concessions. So, yes. So, yeah. So a lot of really great opportunities, and we're going to give you this time to network. You can come up and pick the brains of our panelists. Hopefully, you're okay with that. And then also network with those that are here, because maybe there are 2 of you that want to do this craft fair coming up on December 3rd. $20 to rent that, to have a booth space is really cheap, and a great opportunity, because there'll be a lot of people coming to that event. So,
you betcha. You got Mike?
One day notice, John called yesterday, do you want to bring samples? So I picked what I have.
Out of the freezer?
Thanks for finishing that. No, actually, some of them are baked fresh. I brought chocolate olive oil cake, and that's naturally gluten-free. German apple cake, that has a wheat base, and banana almond cake. So I
Wow.
brought 3 things. Help yourself.
All right. Well, we brought some of our regular sourdough bread, and we have some tasting oils to go along with that. And we also brought some of our pumpkin snickerdoodle cookies, which is one of our holiday offerings, one of the 2. So one of my favorites. So please enjoy.
Thank you very much. Last thing, real last thing. My name is John Tolson. I'm with the Simi Valley Chamber of Commerce. I help businesses grow their business. The people from the city, the startup, the YES, and the Chamber of Commerce, we're here to help you succeed. Thank you very much. Tell your friends I got the back of my head on this show.